Hey, how's it going, everybody? Shaun here for another daily movie review. Today, we're going to be talking about 1987's Near Dark. The film was directed by Kathryn Bigelow, written by Kathryn Bigelow and Eric Red. It stars Adrian Pesdar, Jenny Wright, Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, Tim Thomerson, Joshua John Miller, and others. The logline plot synopsis is a small-town farmer's son reluctantly joins a traveling group of vampires after he is bitten by a beautiful drifter. So yeah, my copy of Near Dark, which apparently you can't get anywhere digitally right now, and this is long since out of print. Over 100 bones for a copy of the Blu-ray of Near Dark, which is kind of crazy. I was like, who's laughing now, motherfuckers? People laugh at me buying all these Blu-rays and shit. Okay? I'm laughing. Because when I wanted to watch Near Dark, I could. No questions asked. No questions asked. Just pulled it off the shelf. Put it in the player. And away we were. I don't need you, technology. I don't need you, streaming services. I got my own streaming services. I got a shelf full of movies. Anyways. So, yeah, I guess watching John Carpenter's Vampires, got me in the mood to watch vampire movies, especially ones that are kind of like Westerns. Near Dark is definitely that. This is Kathryn Bigelow's first, technically her first solo feature-length movie. She did direct a movie before this called The Loveless, starring Willem Dafoe, but she co-directed that. So this was her first solo ride, and it's kind of an audacious statement as a first out of the gate director. Things that she directed after this, or pretty shortly after this, would have been she did Point Break, she did Strange Days, more recently The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, Detroit. What else has she done? Blue Steel. I don't think I've ever seen Blue Steel. Is that with Jamie Lee Curtis? I think so. K-19, The Widowmaker. Oh my goodness. So yeah, but she's generally a pretty solid director. She has kind of this interesting thing, especially in the beginnings of her career, or you look at Strange Days especially, which is kind of almost like a cyberpunk movie. But she really, really grounds things. She makes things feel really tangible, tactile, low-key. Because this kind of feels like a low-key vampire story. It is about a guy who's kind of ends up with a bad crowd because of a girl, and he kind of gets involved with, it's kind of reminds me a little bit of The Lost Boys, like the setup for The Lost Boys in a certain respect. And I would actually say even some of the beats are kind of broadly the same, except this one is much more toned down, less kind of overtly populist in terms of how it is entertaining. But Near Dark has its own kind of vibe to it. That Western vibe is definitely there. It's got a noir kind of feel to it, and a lot of that has to do with the cinematography. It's very kind of a desaturated look. It's a lot of kind of blues, a lot of deep blacks, and the cinematographer, who I looked up, Adam Greenberg, did a fantastic job with this movie. He also did The Terminator. He did The Terminator 2. I would say the most, for comparison's sake, Terminator 2 is or Terminator 1 rather, the first Terminator, which was made a few years before this. And is also, Kathryn Bigelow was married to James Cameron for a couple of years, so that's probably how that comes about. Yeah, it's the closest for comparison in terms of kind of a visual comparison. There's a lot of crossover there, the way the movie looks. And it's got this really interesting kind of Western, like I said, American Southwest vibe with these roving vampire bandits that drive around the country in a van doing vampire shit. Because most of the movie is kind of dominated by this main character, Caleb, his journey into becoming a vampire, or accepting the fact that he is a vampire. Because, he has to learn how to feed. He has to kind of get over the anxiety and the guilt of just doing that, of killing a human being, kind of tapping into his primal nature. And the people that he's with, the other vampires, the crew, the family, Lance Henriksen, Jenny Wright, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, Joshua John Miller. they're all kind of, they've been vampires for a while, and they're completely like primal, animalistic. They've even become kind of masochistic in a sense. You get a sense that they enjoy this kind of place on the food chain that they're at. Just being slightly above humans. They're a little bit faster. They're a little bit stronger. They're a little bit more intelligent, a little more cunning. And they like to fuck with people. They like to have fun doing what they do. So it's kind of got an interesting thing, and because you get to see a little bit of how they like prey on people, and how they use like their personal affectations to get certain types of people to feed on and whatnot, and kind of exposing their own vulnerabilities to expose the victim's vulnerabilities. So there's a lot of interesting layers like that into the movie, and it all kind of culminates in this one big scene, which is my favorite scene in the movie. It's 100% the best part of the movie. Is there's this kind of extended bar scene where Caleb really has to kind of decide whether or not he's going to go through with this lifestyle and whether or not he can embrace it. And there's like this escalation of events where he's challenged on like connecting different natures of somebody's kind of primal ways, right? Like there's the nature of like, violence and survival, sex and survival, sex and violence. And this kind of unlocks the beast inside of him where he's finally able to kind of let go and attack somebody, because the alchemy of all these things has been kind of mixed into his person, into the moment, and informing his decision. He can see the clear path now to do it without guilt, because he deserves it. That's kind of part of the romance of the vampire, right? You fucking deserve it. You deserve this. Good for you, buddy. And and then the story kind of progresses from there. If there is a weak part of the story, I think it does have kind of a weak third act, not because of how it plays out, but and spoiler alerts, I'm gonna have to spoil the end of the movie. Like the kid figures out, or just thinks, he's like, oh, if he does a blood transfusion. His dad's a farmer, like it says in the description, and he does a blood transfusion, and he's cured. Ends up being a cure for vampirism, which I think makes sense. They did not do a very good job of setting up how that would be maybe a thought that would come into Caleb's mind. He's not like a doctor or anything. He's a farm boy, He's a young farm dude. He's a young redneck guy. But other than that, though, I mean, it's pretty easy to forgive because the movie is so kind of tight and well paced, and it's interesting. It's got great characters too. That's one of the great strengths of the movie. You like Caleb, you like May, which is Jenny Wright is May. She's the one that turns Caleb into a vampire in the beginning of the movie, and you like them, and you kind of become invested in their characters. There's kind of like this weird ethereal quality to May. Interesting actress Jenny Wright. Apparently, years ago, she kind of like dropped off the face of the earth, and nobody really knew where she was. But and also then you have the rest of the family. You have Lance Henriksen, Bill Paxton, Jeanette Goldstein, and Joshua John Miller, and they all give really memorable performances. They're all very kind of particular and have really invested a lot in their characters. Like Lance Henriksen, I talked about this. He made Pumpkinhead around this time as well. And he would get like super character actory, and he would get like really into character. And he kind of did the same thing with this character, where he would go out and like find like Civil War memorabilia. He makes a note, which I'm not sure if it was in the script or if it was his idea. I think it might have been his idea that his character be a soldier in the Civil War fighting for the South. So he would go out and do all this stuff himself. And then he got like these acrylic nails, and he would like fucking bust them up. Like he would just do crazy weird shit to get in character, but it pays off. Like he's a presence in this movie, and it's a great, fun Lance Henriksen performance, 100%. Bill Paxton also. This is an earlier role of Bill Paxton. He's kind of playing like a Billy the Kid-esque character. I'm trying to think, what else had he done around this time? This Aliens came out around this time. Commando, he was in Commando. I mean, he did a bunch. But things of note, Streets of Fire, he was in the Terminator briefly, that's right. He's the punk. Aliens, did an episode of Miami Vice. Near Dark. Near Dark is the kind of the start of the real start of his career. Let's just put it that way. And it is an incredibly memorable performance. It's a super fun performance. If you are familiar with the movie, you know the line "finger licking good." That's like a kind of the big one-liner of the movie, because he's the only one who gets like, he's the extroverted personality. Everybody else is very low key. So when Bill Paxton is on the screen, like, he's explosive, and he doesn't even have to do very much. It's just kind of the nature of the movie and how low key it is. And Jeanette Goldstein, while she doesn't have a lot to do, she's very memorable. Like, her person, her, what do you want to call it? Her presence. She has a presence, you know? And Joshua John Miller. Now, this dude, I saw him the other day in a movie. He's like, I saw him in River's Edge. That's what I was watching River's Edge. I watched this live stream. If you really ever bored, check it out. Civic TV on Twitch. It's these guys, like this collective group of filmmakers and comedians and whatnot, and they will watch movies and kind of talk about them and goof around, and it's a fun time. It's this very small community, but you should check it out. And he's in River's Edge around exactly the same time, and they couldn't like figure out if he was like one of these like, sort of primordial dwarves or whatever. I don't know. It's funny. He's got like this really unique look to him. Actually, I can show you because we've upgraded. We've upgraded here at the old place here. So this kid right here, that kid right there, somebody to remember. Oh. Anyways, go back to single. There we go. Gonna work out the kinks there. Try to do something on the fly. I messed it up. That's okay. But yeah, and he's interesting. Gives an interesting performance. He gives like one of these perspectives of like the child vampire, a kid that got turned into a vampire, and he's forever the same age, and that causes him existential dread. And while they don't like ever get super deep into it, it is touched upon, and I think it just informs things a little bit. Like with a movie like this, where really the point is just kind of exploring the nature of the vampire and man, like kind of juxtaposing them. You don't really need to get into it, but the fact that it was there, it adds a little texture. It adds a little flavor to everything else that happens in the movie and with the characters. So, and everybody's got a little piece like that. Everybody has this little piece of information that kind of informs them, and you can actually read into it in their behavior, which is pretty cool. It's an underrated movie. You don't hear people talk about this very often. And I was kind of shocked to find out that this is out of print. Well, not that this was out of print. I bought this for like $7 at Walmart like 10 years ago. Because it was when Blu-rays were kind of newer. They've been out for a couple years, but in terms of kind of the broad consumer market, people weren't buying them. Well, people still don't. People still buy DVDs when they buy Blu-rays, if you can believe that. But Walmart to this day sometimes is like that. They'll just have like weird. I think I got this in like Cujo, the same day, and they were like $5 or $7, some crazy deal. And I used to own it on DVD growing up, or my dad owned it, and he bought there was a really cool looking 2-disc, double disc special edition of it. Actually, I'll see if I can find a picture of it because it's so cool. Near Dark 2-disc DVD. But anyways, I used to have it, and it was always kind of a favorite of mine. Yeah, it's like, oh, here it is. Last one, but yeah, let's see if we can get it. We're working on it. We're working on doing new stuff here. Yeah, so this right here, really fucking cool. I really loved that case though. Always did it for me. Look, you can get it for $93. That's a DVD. New other. Oh, let's see. That's one right there. Anyways, that was the one. Pre-owned. New other. Brand new. Auction. Okay, well you can get it. I don't know, you don't need to. If you can find the Blu-ray. Let's actually, now that we're here, let's look up Near Dark Blu-ray. I wonder what is going on. Okay, so you can get it used for about $28. Out of print. This one's sealed for $50 or best offer. Yeah, so you can get it for like well, that's an auction. Okay, that's an auction. So about $50, I guess you could say, is on the old eBay marketplace there. About $50. So very cool. Very cool that I own it and I don't have to go through the stress of trying to do that because it's not available. I'm sure it's out there, and not that I would say advocate piracy, but you got to do what you got to do. This goes back. I did a live stream the other night talking about the importance of public domain, the importance of piracy, and people that take on preservation themselves. I talked a little bit about that stuff. This would be an example of that. Sometimes rights will get mismanaged or whatever, and it'll just fall by the wayside. I'm sure there's something, probably, I bet you at some point in the near future, there will be a new edition of Near Dark, or this will get reprinted or whatever. I'm not sure. This is from Lionsgate Studio Canal. So I'm not sure what's going to go on with that, but I imagine that at some point it'll come back. Kathryn Bigelow is not like a nobody, and is generally, I think, a pretty well-respected movie. I liked it. If you've never seen it, I suggest you find a way to watch it. It was fun. It was a fun revisit, too. I hadn't watched it in a long time. I probably hadn't watched it since I bought it, which would have been like 10 years ago. So it was a great rewatch. Thank you, John Carpenter's Vampires, for reminding me about it. Because I saw it on my shelf like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, oh, I should check that out. And then it just completely left my mind. So, as things often do. All right, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for Dan's Twitter. If you'd like to make a recommendation for one of these daily videos, throw it in the comments, and I will put it on the list. Also, check out the channel over the next few days. Tuesday, Election Day. At some point, Dan and I are probably going to do some sort of live stream. I'm not sure what the details are going to be. You might be just hanging out with us while we watch other stuff. I don't know. Because, we're not professional pundits or anything. We watch our own shit. Or we watch other people's stuff. That's what we do. We're just consumers. We're filthy consumers. And it might be just us fucking watching other people's things occasionally. But we don't know. We're going to go probably do a nice long live stream. It's going to be our first in a while. Maybe we'll even have some special guests stopping by, chit-chatting on the old phone there. So we'll see what happens. All right, everybody. You have the best one ever.